Welcome to Awesome Movie Year, the podcast where we take a look back at an awesome year for movies, which is every year. My name is Josh Bell, film critic and writer, and I'm here with my co-host.
Yeah, I'm going to need you to retake that intro there, Josh. If you could just retake that intro, that would be great.
What's happening, Jason?
I'm Jason Harris, filmmaker, comedian, no talent ass clown.
All right, perfect. So, in this season of Awesome Movie Year, we've been talking about the films of 1999, and we are here at the pick from our producer, David Rosen. So, Dave, what did you pick for us to talk about?
I picked Mike Judge's Office Space.
You did indeed. And it's a perfect night. I mean, we've talked about how many kind of landmark or beloved movies there are from this year. There's so many, but this is one that if Dave didn't pick it, we could have included elsewhere because it's clearly an important film from this year.
Called classic all the way.
That it is. Yeah, it was not successful when it was first released. It was a $10 million budgeted film that grossed $12.2 million at the box office, which was considered quite a disappointment. This was the first live action project from Mike Judge, who was already quite successful as the creator of Beavis and Butthead and King of the Hill. So I think there were some decent sized expectations for this as he transitioned from animation into live action. And those expectations, box office wise, were not met.
Yeah, one thing we got to talk about is, when researching this, just how unhappy Judge was with the way the film was marketed. Seems like not even the studio got this one at the time.
No, and that's a common thread in Mike Judge's work. So yeah, one funny thing I noticed about that is that one thing he hated, and I think some of the other producers hated, was the poster for this film, which has some person covered in Post-it notes and Milton, the Stephen Root character, kind of peeking out from behind that character. And I watched this film on Hulu where the image for it is that poster.
No, I mean, but you know what? I'm going to defend that poster, even though it has really no reference point, because originally Milton wasn't even in it and then they put him in. But we all remember that poster, right? That's one movie poster we all remember. So I got to defend it. I know they did stunts, put a dude dressed in that, covered in Post-it notes in a box above Town Square, or just walking around doing publicity stunts. So yeah, it has nothing to do with the movie, but as bad as the marketing might have been, we all remember that poster.
Well, I mean, maybe just because there aren't any other posters, and that when they put this movie on Hulu, that's what they're stuck with, or when they put it out on DVD and they need something for the cover.
No, I'm just saying, I think if you made a list of posters from this era, that would be one of the more memorable ones.
Yes.
Check it out on our new show, Awesome Poster Year.
Yeah, that's a good idea. How many poster podcasts are there really?
There should be.
Yeah, there should be.
Okay, bye.
Yeah. Get right on that, Dave. Yeah, I mean, and so this was a movie that the response to it at the time was mixed. I mean, not only did it not make a lot of money at the box office, it was modestly well reviewed by critics, but there definitely were critics who were not a fan of it, and audiences didn't respond to it that much. I mean, what was interesting to me is that this movie got a C+ cinema score from the audience polling service, and that's bad because they will poll people who went to see that on opening night, the people who were most eager to see it. And I would think that as maybe this movie was mismarketed, anyone who was a big Mike Judge fan and was excited to go see this movie right away, I would have thought would have enjoyed it.
Well, maybe it was a mix of those people and the people who thought they were getting into Jennifer Aniston sitcom stuff.
Yeah, that is possible. And Jennifer Aniston, who has a supporting but not insignificant at all role in this film, I think was marketed as
she's great in this movie.
She's good in this. She definitely is. But you're right that if people were watching Friends or whatever and thought, oh, we're going to get a Rachel or something in this film, they certainly didn't get that. But critics were fairly kind to it. It got 2 thumbs up from Roger Ebert and his guest critic Tom Shales at the time, who Tom Shales mentioned he was a Washington Post critic, and he said he saw this at a screening full of government workers and they all applauded. So, there was a level of appreciation there, people identifying with it. So Roger Ebert said in his written review, Mike Judge's Office Space is a comic cry of rage against the nightmare of modern office life. It has many of the same complaints as Dilbert and the movie Clock Watchers, and for that matter, the works of Kafka and the Book of Job. It is about work that crushes the spirit. Office cubicles are cells, supervisors are the wardens, and modern management theory is skewed to employ as many managers and as few workers as possible. Office Space uses Orwellian satirical techniques to fight the cubicle police. No individual detail of office routine is too absurd to be believed, but together they add up to stark, staring insanity.
So, Josh, real fast, Clock Watchers, have you ever seen it?
I have not. Yeah, Ebert mentions that a bunch in his review. I think another isn't Lisa Kudrow, another friend is in that film.
I know
Maybe I'm confusing it with something else.
It's 1997. It's for female temps, and this is a mostly male cast here. Toni Collette, Lisa Kudrow, Alana Ubach, and Parker Posey. I haven't seen it either. I'd be interested in watching it.
Yeah, I would too. And he was the only one who mentions that. That seems like maybe it was a favorite of his particularly. Dilbert, of course, comes up in like every single review of this film because that was popular at the time.
Yeah, and it's based on the Milton cartoons, which Judge had done before, and they were kind of like, can we make a Milton movie? And he just did it as an entire Office conglomerate. The other thing I wanted to mention in that review was like he said, no detail is too small. And thank goodness, Mike Judge, man, does he nail the minutiae of this culture?
Yeah, the detail is great. I think the bigger picture here is not as successful, but the little details of office life are really, really well observed.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with you on that one, Josh. I feel like it's a home run all the way through.
Yeah. Well, clearly Dave does as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I watched a couple of those Milton shorts, which you can find on like YouTube and stuff. They're all like 2 minutes long. And it's impressive. Not only is Milton the character there was played by Stephen Root in the film, but Lumbergh, who you've been doing an impression of, played by Gary Cole in the film, is also like a fully realized character in those little shorts, including some of the like verbatim lines that end up in the movie.
And is that Mike Judge voicing him in those?
It's Mike Judge voicing both. And so Lumbergh in that sounds like Beavis and Butthead's teacher. He says, okay, you know, like that.
Gary Cole, I had read, said when he auditioned for this, he didn't really have a take on the character, so he just did his best Mike Judge's Lumbergh impression. And Mike Judge was like, man, he nailed it. He got it. So,
yeah, well, I think Gary Cole, both Gary Cole and Stephen Root take these kind of rudimentary characters, and those shorts really are, they were made by Mike Judge probably like in his garage. They're very crude. So they take those kind of rudimentary characters and really bring them to life in a very effective way in this version. But it's also impressive just how fully formed that is in those little early stages.
Mike Judge, does he, maybe this is more a point for later, but as he's always seems to be ahead of the curve here in America and the zeitgeist.
Yeah, or at least for quite a period of time, he certainly was. So Rita Kempley in the Washington Post was mostly positive. She said, Office Space, a knowing, somewhat slight, often hilarious send-up of cubicle culture, exploits the yucks in the chronic misery of those routinely exposed to the monotonous gray of corporate minds and company decor. The comedy explores the same turf as Dilbert and The Drew Carey Show, but its true soulmate is the inflatable Scream Doll. Based on 3 of Mike Judge's early animated shorts, the film lacks a unifying theme and a compelling storyline. But as social satire, it sure hits close to home for many a corporate drone. And misery loves comedy.
What is the inflator? Is that blowy man outside?
I'm not sure exactly what she's referring to, whether it's that or some sort of version of the Edvard Munch painting of the man screaming.
Yeah.
One of those.
Yeah, I think we've just shown the entire cultural spectrum. Me, used car lot guy, blowy man outside, you referencing classical painters.
That's a really famous image.
I know, we all know the painting, Josh.
Yeah.
Calm down. Hey, what did she say there about, give me the sentence again where she talked about it's funny, but it doesn't all hold together or whatever she said there.
Yeah, she says the film lacks a unifying theme and a compelling storyline. And I don't know if I agree with her about the theme, but I definitely think, especially in the second half, that the plot is not worth much.
I'm going to disagree again. And I got this quote from Stephen Holden of the New York Times because he had a similar sentiment. He said it has the loose jointed feel of a bunch of sketches packed together into a narrative that doesn't gather much momentum. And as someone, who tries to write comedies, some of the notes I've gotten back on scripts are it feels too sketch like, or there's a bunch of sketches and it's like, if the sketches are all funny and they kind of connect, then who cares? Like, it's good for me.
No, I see. And like, this is the thing is that I agree with you that it's funny when it's almost just sort of a loose collection of sketches, but it seems like in the second half, they're like, wait, it's a movie. We need a big plot. And we bring in that whole, we're going to embezzle money from the company and the stakes have to get raised and all of that. And I just didn't really care about any of that stuff.
I guess that's all right. Even Mike Judge said he would have wanted another crack at Act 3, but it all holds together for me.
Yeah. I mean, I still find it amusing, but I just felt like increasingly there was a focus on a plot that I just didn't really care about.
I mean, having seen other Mike Judge movies, Extract per se, which I haven't watched since the first time, which was probably more of a cohesive plot. Is that really better for Mike Judge?
That's what I'm saying is that I didn't want him to have a plot at all. I wanted it to be what you're describing, which is just this series of sketches about office life.
Yeah, anarchy.
Yeah. So on the most negative end of the spectrum, Owen Gleiberman in Entertainment Weekly said...
Wet blanket Owen Gleiberman.
Yes.
There we go. He was in a bad mood in 1999.
Apparently so. He said, the movie throws off nasty shards of vitality in its first half hour, when Judge is setting the scene, doing pinpoint riffs on corporate manners. It's like Dilbert rewritten by Kafka. But the hero turns out to be a dullard, and there's not enough going on in his relationships with his two comrades. Even Peter's romance with a waitress, who has amusing corporate headaches of her own, she doesn't sport an enthusiastic enough amount of flair on her uniform, dwindles into a cliched fit of petty jealousy. Office Space feels cramped and underimagined. I think Judge is capable of making an inspired live-action comedy, but next time he'll have to remember to do what he does in his animated ones, keep the madness popping. And I'm not nearly as negative as that, but I do think that that's kind of what I was saying, that like the sort of goofy ridiculousness ends up taking a bit of a backseat to the plot and also the plot elements of his relationship with the Jennifer Aniston character, where as funny as the satire is of her ridiculous job, which is ridiculous in a different way from their jobs, like the idea of them, it's like we had to have this rom-com structure. Well, they have to have a fight and they have to break up so that they can reunite. Like, we don't need any of that.
It definitely does all that. I don't mind it. I kind of like those subplots and those threads. I can understand, your critique of that, and also the idea that maybe we don't have enough of the three leads together. But I don't know, man. Maybe none of it bothers me.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't think he's right. I don't think Peter there is a dullard. I don't think that's the right word for him. He's a simple man, and that's kind of part of the point of the film. And so I thought that was fine. I liked Peter as a character.
Well, Josh, I want to read one more quote, because you know how we like to make fun of movie reviewers who speak movie reviewy a lot.
Yeah.
So I have found this from Susan Wolzina from USA Today. Do you know who she is?
I don't, and I can't pronounce the name for you.
She really Rex reads this one up,
Yeah.
or Gene Shalit's it up.
Yeah.
So if you've ever had a job, you'll be amused by this peon to peons.
Oh, that's the whole. that's all you had.
But it's like,
yeah.
Look, these words sound alike. Let's put a sentence together.
Yeah. As writers, we know it's sometimes tempting to do that because you're amusing yourself.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Yeah. So, right. So, I mean, this certainly wasn't a movie that like rode a wave of critical acclaim or anything like that, but was just underappreciated at the box office. This was a movie that, based on the box office and based on the reviews, seemed like something that would be forgotten. And it's definitely not that.
And, this goes to the legacy, but we've talked about how, movies have found their audience on home video before. And this definitely was a huge home video hit. But this really gets the jolt from Comedy Central, which ran it constantly. And that's how it found its audience a lot.
Yes. And that was maybe the right place for it. Maybe it wasn't a thing that people were going to go to theaters for, but they would watch at home.
Well, I wish we would see more of that now. We don't really see too many just straight comedies on streaming. And the ones we do see are not as good as this.
That is, well, how many people are Mike Judge,
One.
Right. Exactly.
One person is Mike Judge.
Yes.
I'm sure there are other people named Mike Judge, but in reference to your question, you're talking about the one Mike Judge.
Thank you for clarifying that to Lumbergian degrees. So, I mean, obviously this came and went quickly. Did you see this in theaters, Jason?
No, and I didn't have any desire to see it in theaters. I think I wasn't a Beavis and Butthead fan. I know you were.
I love Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah. But I didn't have any desire to, and I think people just over time must have been like, oh, you got to see it. And eventually I would have rented it. I wouldn't have let Comedy Central spoil it for me with their censoring of words and whatnot.
Commercials.
So, yeah, I don't need that. And I loved it. And guess what? I still love it, Josh. And I've seen it a couple of times since I first saw it.
Oh, well, that's great. Yeah, weirdly, I had almost the opposite experience where I loved Mike Judge. I loved Beavis and Butthead. And I don't know at what point in the run of King of the Hill this came out, and that was on forever. But I really liked that show.
I
in
thought
its early
King of the Hill
seasons.
was like 96. Maybe it started.
Maybe
or
so. So it was, it was still in its earlier years, and I really enjoyed that then. So I didn't see this in theaters. I don't remember why. Maybe because it just came and went so quickly. But it was something that I was aware of and wanted to see, and eventually did rent. And I remember being super disappointed in it and not thinking it was funny. And I may not have seen it since then. And coming back to it now, I thought it was fun. I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it.
You're a stick in the mud.
Well, that's been established pretty clearly for a long time now. So, Dave, you love this. Did you see it when it came out in theaters?
I'm almost sure I did.
You say that every episode. You have no recollection of your earlier life, but you're just gonna like.
This is a thing about me. You're gonna have to like learn. I do not remember things like before a certain year.
What?
Yeah, my brain just does not work. But
write notes to yourself, memento yourself.
I feel like I had to have seen this though because I thought it looked hilarious at the time. I love Beavis and Butthead, and also I was really hyped because of the Cannabis song. Take the job and shove it.
Terrible.
I'm a big Cannabis fan, so yeah.
That's a take the job and shove it.
Yeah.
The Billy Joe Shaver.
Well, it's
Joe,
the one that David Allen Coe, that plays over the credits. It samples that, and it's got Cannabis and Bismarcky rap. It's awful.
Yeah, I was a big fan of that song.
Yeah, that sounds about
it's
right.
It's the closing credits song.
No, but Dave, you said it looked hilarious, and I'm saying I don't think it looked hilarious at all based on the marketing. What looked hilarious to you about it?
I don't know, something about it. Just maybe it was the Dilbert thing, maybe something about it. It really looked funny to me at the time. Yeah.
And I'm guessing you've probably seen it like 20 times.
Oh yeah, at least. Yeah.
It's that, there's nothing wrong with just making a movie that can cheer people up.
Yeah, I mean, and this is clearly a movie that has that effect. It's beloved by many people, and it's something that has that rewatching aspect to it, which came partially out, I'm sure, of people seeing it over and over on Comedy Central.
I think you're right, Josh.
Thank you, Jason. So any other background you want to mention on this?
The Milton cartoons, Josh. Remember Liquid Television?
Yeah, I was a big fan of Liquid Television. I don't know if I saw those cartoons on Liquid Television. Like watching them just yesterday, I don't think I'd seen them before, but I definitely liked Liquid Television. And they also aired on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, pretty good. Mike Judge, even before he was famous, was kind of like making moves, huh?
Well, right. I mean, in Beavis and Butthead also came out of a short film that he made called Frog Baseball that I think aired on Liquid Television that was also that sort of like crude small scale thing that he just did on his own.
For those who don't know Liquid Television, tell us about it, Josh.
It was an anthology series on MTV with a lot of animated short films, and it ended up being very influential, whether it's this or Beavis and Butthead. Eon Flux was one of the ongoing cartoons on Liquid Television, which was, I loved Eon Flux, and that was made into a very bad movie many years later.
Yeah. It was like the Spike and Mike Sick and Twisted Animation Festival, but on TV every week.
Yeah, I mean, but Spike and Mike, I think, is more focused on that, like, grossing out the audience.
Value,
yeah,
right. This had a wider variety.
Right. There was a lot of weird, experimental, cool stuff on Liquid Television. So yeah, I definitely was a fan of that show, along with other MTV animation. The 90s and maybe the early 2000s were kind of a golden age for MTV animation.
I agree with you.
Good.
Okay.
Okay. Well, we'll come back then in a moment and talk about our general thoughts on Office Space. Welcome back to Awesome Movie Year. In this episode of our season on the films of 1999, we're talking about our producer David Rosen's pick, Office Space. So, Dave, what do you love about Office Space?
I mean, aside from it being just hilarious from beginning to end, I think there's so many funny parts to it. The overall story is great too. Like I do get the stories that you're saying you didn't quite connect with, but really it's the kind of the point of view of the main character, Peter. You know, there's that one line, I wrote it down, I did nothing. I did absolutely nothing, and it was everything I thought it could be, that he says after he gets hypnotized and just stops coming into work. That line is just like my mission statement. You know what I mean? I mean, it's how I live my life, and this movie is perfect for that.
I'm going to back Dave on that, because I not just that, but the other one, he goes, you know, the first day I worked there was the worst day of my life, and every day since then has been worse. So every day has been the worst day of my life.
Yeah.
I totally get it, man.
Yeah. I will say that I agree with you on the wanting to do nothing.
Mhm.
I definitely feel that way. And I certainly have that concept. One of the things that comes up early in this film is the idea of, you know, what would you do? They say if you had $1 million, of course, now sad, like $1 million is probably not enough.
Right.
But the idea that if you had enough that you didn't have to work, you could be comfortable and you would never have to work, what would you do with your life? And I think I'm with you. I would do nothing. I mean, not literally the day that he spends doing nothing, he literally just like doesn't get out of bed, and that is a symptom of severe depression.
Sure.
But you know,
And hypnosis in this case.
well, right. But I'm saying that like if every day of your life you just didn't get out of bed,
Yeah.
you would be diagnosed with some mental problems.
Yeah, I could have used that diagnosis of depression a while ago, but I figured it out sooner or later.
That's good.
But
Yeah,
Josh, I don't think you would do that. You would still write.
Yeah,
You'd still-
I
you
might.
would-
I don't know. But I mean, I think I would honestly. I mean, I enjoy writing or whatever, but I think I would probably do a lot less.
Right. But I'm saying, like, look, you and I have both had quote unquote corporate jobs in the 9-to-5 world, and neither of us are doing them now. And it doesn't really fit us. Dave, did you ever have like an office job, or
I worked 1 year in Dell tech support.
how was that
Ooh.
for you?
Just awful, just
Yeah.
terrible, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I was lucky in the office job that I had at Las Vegas Weekly, which is, you know, a media company, and it was full of journalists and creative people, and there was a lot of flexibility in when you had to be in the office and dress codes and behavior. And like, I still ultimately wanted to get out of it, but it was a lot less soul crushing than this.
Yeah, and I basically worked for what's the equivalent of an advertising agency for a major casino corporation, and they basically gave me free reign to do what I want. You know, like there were assignments, but they never really tried to thwart my creativity in those assignments. And they kind of left me alone, and the meetings we would had were about like kind of interesting projects. And even that became too oppressive for me. Although I do have an Addy Award to show for it. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, that's pretty good.
Did you ever have to do TPS reports?
No, I never had to do anything like that. The worst thing I ever had to do was like go on to like WordPress and write up these show descriptions for, you know, the Doobie Brothers. Easy stuff that any of us could do. It's just a task, right?
Right.
So, but that stuff doesn't bother us because that's part of our job that we chose as writers, right? But so like that's what I mean. But even in this structure where it was like, cool, you can work on, you know, some crazy ad campaign here, I still like was like, yeah, I'm ready to get out.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is that corporate structure is that even, you know, and when I was working at Las Vegas Weekly, like I did get to do a lot of things that I enjoyed doing and wanted to do, but just the hierarchy and the way things are structured can be still fairly soul crushing, and lots of meetings and lots of managers and bosses and things being micromanaged or obligations that you have, and all of those kinds of things I definitely wore on me as well.
Yeah, I think so. But I think it's less about, I mean, yes, on all of that, but it's not just the idea of that job. It's the idea that you know what you're going to do every single day, right? There's like, because Peter doesn't really do nothing. He goes fishing. He goes to barbecues. He plans a corporate fraud. You know, he does things. But I totally get the idea of not wanting to get caught in the monotony and the mundane nature of doing the same thing every day.
Yeah, I suppose. But on the other hand, I am happy to do the same thing every day. Maybe not those particular things, but if I had a chance to do nothing and I just got up every day and watched a few movies and then went to bed, I would be happy to not. I don't like variety in my life.
Man, we should make a documentary about you one day.
About me sitting on my couch watching movies.
I just put one camera there and leave it for 3 weeks.
Experimental, be like the Andy Warhol Empire State Building movie that we talked about last season.
Yeah, it's just you do it. Look, I want to say this, like, because we've already done episodes on Fight Club and American Beauty, which deal with the similar themes, and got this quote from Mike Judge here. Something was boiling underneath the American workplace that was going to come out at some point in 1999 was the year that it happened. I think this is the most effective of those three in really commenting on the workplace and the culture at that point in time.
Yeah, I mean, I like Fight Club a lot more, but I think there's not as much about the workplace in there. Edward Norton's character, you only have a couple scenes there of him in his office.
Yeah. I also think they beat you over the head with it,
Yeah, well, they're literally beating people over the head is kind of the point of that movie. But yeah. No, I mean, I think what I like about this movie is the way that it smartly makes those observations about office life and office culture and uses real things. I mean, I remember one of the things that shocked me was when I learned that TPS reports were a real thing. Like, it's such a thing that sounds made up. And clearly that's what Mike Judge is good at, is finding this one particular thing that's like, this is ridiculous, and amplifying
the
it.
TPS report to me is so funny because he pushes it 3 steps beyond where it needs to be. Like, it's repeated so much in the first 10 minutes of it. I'm sure like traditional studio note takers would be like, well, why does he keep bringing this up? The joke's dead. And I'm like, no, he kind of brought it back to life by continuing it so far. And the printer, the way that the printer, which Judge had a real problem, that's what he based it on. I also like the door that he can never get open and everything.
Yeah, that static shock.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's what I mean. He gets the static shock on it. I love those details.
Yeah, the details are great. So Dave, did you have TPS reports at Dell?
We had something like that. Yeah. It was just terrible, soul crushing.
Because Jason and I are talking about these semi-creative jobs, but that is really like the job that they have in this film. I mean, they're software engineers. They're working with computers. It's an IT thing.
Yeah.
So.
Another thing I like, aside from Peter's job and his coworker's job, is Jennifer Aniston's character over at Tchotchkes.
Yeah.
She's great in this, like you said. And one of your reviews pointed out the whole thing about the, not a minimum required amount of flair, but what you want to express.
We want you to express yourself. And supposedly this movie was the impetus to get rid of flair at TGI Fridays, because people would continually ask them where their flair was.
Right. Amazing. Well, and I do like that because it shows that Mike Judge is good at satirizing these different kinds of corporate culture. That obviously Tchotchkes is a very different environment from Initech, but there's a lot of specificity there too. Just like he grabs on like TPS reports and PC load letter and things like that, he can grab onto that detail of the pieces of flair and make you really understand the mandates that go on in that company.
Well, not just that, the character types, the manager who like refuses to confront you straight on, but it's like, we just want you to express yourself. And then you have the coworker who's so excited to be working at Tchotchkes and everything. And I think we've dealt with those people too over time. So I think the specificity of the characters is great as well.
Yeah. And shout out to Mike Judge, who plays the manager at Tchotchkes himself.
Yeah. But a shout out to all the actors. Josh. I mean, we mentioned, Gary Cole, and how about John McGinley and Paul Wilson as the Bobs? Like,
so good.
There's so much fun in parts that could easily be throwaways.
Right. And what I like too about those characters is that they seem really like jazzed about their jobs, as opposed to Peter. Like, they're excited to really like help this company be more efficient. And when they have the meeting with Peter, who has been hypnotized and he now no longer cares about anything. No, I mean, he cares about stuff, but he doesn't care about what people are going to think of him or what the consequences might be. And he just completely honest with them about not caring about his job and not working hard. And they're just like fascinated by him, like genuinely fascinated by this perspective. And I like that Lumbergh is sort of soulless or whatever, Gary Cole's character, but the Bobs they seem to be really into being these corporate guys.
Right. It's yeah. What is Lumbergh's Porsche say, or what is his car? It's got a
Yeah, it says like my Porsche or something on his license plate.
There's such a shallow level to the entire character there. Did you think the hypnosis? I mean, I think that could easily not have worked, but I feel like it worked for me as like the impetus for him to just like move on.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously ridiculous and, unrealistic, but I think you just need something there, and it's enough where you can buy into that. And obviously that's what he really wants anyway. So he just needs kind of this catalyst moment to let himself be how he wants to be. And so I'm fine with it.
I mean, similar to the Lester Burnham situation.
I suppose so. And it better for it to be a hypnotist than lust for a teenage girl. So I'll take that.
It's such a simplistic like reason for all this to go into play. It feels like a cartoon, which this, of course, being based on those comics. So
yeah, I mean, there is a cartoonish aspect of this, but that's okay. I mean, that's what Mike Judge is good at.
Yeah.
And I think he translates, unlike I think what Owen Gleiberman is saying, I think he does translate a lot of the strengths of his animated work into this film.
I agree. I mean, I just, like I said, I think he's ahead of the times a lot of the time. I think, look, if you want to criticize an element, to me, the nagging girlfriend, Alexandra Wentworth, which was a very popular thing, throughout comedies, hopefully not as much anymore. But, when we talked about Old School, we talked about a character like that who's just there to like, look at how bad the main character's life is. And she has 0 dimensions, not even 1 dimension, right?
Right. I mean, at least she kind of disappears early on. She's only actually on screen in the one scene where they're at the hypnotist, and then she calls him on the phone one time. And at least, the sort of rom-com nature of it, you would expect that there might be some scene where she decides she wants him back for some reason. And thankfully, we don't get anything like that.
Yeah.
So we move on from her fairly quickly.
And they do give Jennifer Aniston some good shading as a character, I think.
Yeah, she gets more than she could have. And I think it really helps that she has that job herself, that she is also being subject to ridiculous corporate demands, because it puts her on a level playing field with Peter that she wouldn't be if we didn't see those scenes of her without him.
I like when he finally asks her out. That scene's very good. We're like, well, what do you want to do? And he's like, nothing. But right now, I just want to take you to lunch and then to dinner. And then he just keeps talking. He's like, well, can we just do lunch first or something?
Right.
I thought that was a good meet cute, even though they had already met before.
Yeah. And the fact that he's sort of achieved this state of not worrying about things allows him to be loose and approachable with her. And, and also they make sure that when he asks her out, it's not like it's emboldened him. I feel like a lot of movies, maybe from this period, would use that as an excuse, like he's become some sort of like ladies' man with swagger, but that's not what it is at all. He's like, hey, cool, if you want to hang out, I'll be there. And if you don't, like, no worries.
Yeah.
He's very open
Zen.
with her. Yeah,
Zen
exactly. He is.
Now, Ron Livingston, who we like, and I forget, but I know we've talked about him.
Swingers. We talked about him in Swingers.
I've seen that film.
Yeah.
And the Swingers was the biggest thing he had done to this point. And obviously, studio didn't want to cast him, because why would they want to cast an actor who's good at his job? But, even when he was doing it, what I had read was like the studio's like, you're not putting enough energy in. How are we going to know? We want this character to fight the system. And it's like, he trusted Mike Judge, which was the smart move. But it's clear that they just did not get this movie. But it's interesting because Tom Rothman, who was the head of this studio at the time, I think it was Sony, was it, that did this one?
I'm not sure about that, actually.
Maybe Fox, I don't know. But anyway, it was Fox. And he said it was the most brilliant workplace satire I've ever seen. So he got something out of it, right? When he read the script and everything. But it's interesting that it's almost like they were trying to kneecap the movie before it even got off the ground.
Right. But Ron Livingston is perfect in that role. And Jennifer Aniston is good. And I think, she's coming into this with all this sitcom baggage. And I'm sure this was a time when it was tough for her to figure out what kind of movie roles to take in order to move her career beyond Friends. I mean, that was something that all of those actors had trouble with and seem to continue having trouble with, but so she pulls it off. And it's not like we're watching this and thinking, oh, this is Rachel from Friends or anything like that. And I think, sort of underrated, David Herman and Ajay Naidu, who play the coworkers, and neither of whom are really famous or gone on to huge careers, but they're both perfect in those little roles as well.
Dave Herman does have a huge career.
Well, as a voice actor,
he does. And we mentioned Ajay in our Bad Santa episode, and you were not a fan of him there. But
well, that wasn't his fault. That was just a misguided scene.
No, I like them, and it's funny the first time we see Dave Herman, and he's doing gangster rap, and once a black passenger pulls up next to him in a car, he just has to like put it quietly down and roll up the windows.
Right. It subtly gets at things like that too, about race or whatever, where you don't really expect that in this movie. But I think Mike Judge manages to address some fairly complex things here within the broad comedy spectrum.
Dave, any well, we got to talk about Milton real fast, I think, too, before we get to Dave.
Oh yeah,
breakout.
Yeah. I mean, Stephen Root, who is brilliant in so many things, and this is not the kind of role he's known for at all, but he's perfect.
Man, those under the breath like lines at the end of this, I would burn this building down. Like just the stuff that he does like that is so funny.
And again, all of that comes from the original short films.
Yeah.
It's great. There's one line I don't think that's in the movie, but in the short, where he says, I'm going to put strychnine in the coffee.
He says he says it
at the office party.
Oh,
right?
does he? Oh, okay.
No,
I missed that.
He says it when he's on the beach.
Yeah,
and
the
they give him
beach
the
at the
wrong
very
drink.
end.
Oh,
Yeah.
he's gonna do. Yeah, so I missed that, but that was very funny.
I had an awakening like years later, seeing Stephen Root, one of his many great performances, and realizing that Milton was Stephen Root. I'd never realized it. Like put two and two together, because he's so incognito.
Yeah, he's really like immersed in that role.
But like we've talked about, like all these characters are, the Tom character who's like so happy that he got almost killed by getting hit by a car. He's like, dreams can come true. Good things happen if you work hard enough or believe or whatever.
Look at me.
Well, you can't skip over Diedrich Bader.
Yeah, so Diedrich
good.
Bader was one of those where the studio was like, let's get a big actor, Johnny
he is
Depp,
very tall.
Billy Bob Thornton. And Diedrich Bader, what I had read, had this whole take on this character to play him like Owen Wilson. And he went into the audition, and while he was waiting, he saw Owen Wilson walk out of the audition. He's like, oh, I guess I better change the character because I can't play Owen Wilson better than Owen Wilson.
Right.
That's how he ended
I feel
up
like he's channeling maybe a little bit of Billy Bob in that role.
I was going to say like a Ted Nugent, cowboy style.
I thought it was Kurt, what's his name from Metallica?
Kirk Hammett? Yeah, maybe in the hair a little bit. Yeah. But in his demeanor, I could see Billy Bob playing that role.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's definitely very funny. I mean, all the performances, like when we talk about getting in the detail of this world, the performances are a huge part of that.
Yeah, I've made them probably the most major part of it. But I think the other name, so Johnny Depp would have been a fun
as
Lawrence.
The Diedrich Bader
Yeah,
character?
I think and Billy Bob. They both
have you seen Johnny Depp in wacky comedic comic relief roles in Kevin Smith films, and then imagine that he did that here? Like, no, it would have been bad.
Billy Bob could have done
Billy Bob could have done it. Yeah.
And the studio obviously wanted them, 99, go after Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, and then another name
for the Diedrich Bader
I think for the lead or whatever.
Yeah.
And then Kate Hudson for the Joanne character.
No, it probably would have been okay.
I think Jennifer Aniston owns that character.
No, she's good. I'm just saying that I think Kate Hudson could have pulled it off too. But however they ended up on this cast, and the fact is, the studio is asking for all those names that they didn't get, but I'm sure Jennifer Aniston is one that the studio insisted on, and it worked out.
Yeah, I agree with you. Dave, the studio also hated the rap music. The kids love the rap music, but the studio did not like the gangster rap soundtrack.
Ghetto Boys, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a freaking fantastic needle drop when that song "Damn It Feels Good to Be a Gangster" starts playing.
And that's my favorite one of theirs. So,
yeah.
But they wanted him to change it, and Judge said like, well, let's do a focus group on it, and all the kids were like, it's cool that they work in an office, but they listen to rap music.
And of course, that is the like ironic juxtaposition. And as you see in that scene in the beginning in the car, like he's also making fun of the idea that these like lame white guys are really into gangster rap.
Yeah, I like
which is very real, by the way.
Of course, right.
Yeah.
And it's another very real detail that he gets here.
I like the scene where they're just all breakdancing, which AJ was
oh yeah, he was like a professional dancer, so he breaks out his moves.
I like all that stuff. Those are totally unnecessary scenes that build the tapestry of the world for me.
I agree. And so I mean, I do want to then talk about the plot that kicks in like halfway through the movie,
right,
where they decide that they're going to create this like computer virus that steals small amounts of money from the company and puts it into a bank account. And as they say, they're basically ripping this idea off from Superman 3 and from some real people who tried it in the 70s. And I mean, I appreciate that he's acknowledging that it's not that original an idea, but in a way, acknowledging that feels like Mike Judge saying like, all right, well, I had to have a plot in this movie, so here you go.
You might be right on that. At the same time, at least there's the motivation. We know Peter's motivation, but at this point, they're going to promote him and fire his two best friends. So he feels like corporate sabotage is a fair trade-off for it.
Yeah, I just felt like it just got really focused on that. And then that has to escalate, and Milton is going to burn down the office building. And I don't know, just some of that rang false. And especially the idea at the end where Peter is now happy because he's become a construction worker. That doesn't seem like the right solution.
Well, a few things. One, Milton burning down the office building has nothing to do with that. It's just a coincidence.
Well, but it is a way to wrap that plot
Right,
up in a
that's
very
true.
convenient manner.
Two, I think the conversations about it, like that Peter and Joanne have, are fair and like work towards their relationship. And then three, like, Mike Judge had talked about how he had a job like that. And I thought it was justified. Like, hey, this isn't so bad. We're in the fresh air, and I think he says making bucks. And I'm like, that doesn't really hold up. But,
Yeah. That
Getting
would
exercise, making bucks.
And I think I read somewhere that either in the script or maybe it was shot and cut, that at the very end, after he talks about how happy he is in this new job, there's a construction supervisor who starts to yell at him. And I felt like that would have been a perfect button on that.
That would have been great.
Yeah, because then it shows you that like, no, this isn't really a dream. It's just another job.
Right. And he's tolerating it. Josh, if that had happened, would it have made you show your O face?
Yeah, we got to give acknowledgement to the O face guy. Yeah.
He improvised that.
Did he? Yeah, that was a brilliant improvisation there. And that's another thing that people quote endlessly from this film is the O face.
I think so.
Yeah. So anything else you want to add here, Dave? Anything you think we should make sure to remember?
Dave, pulling out the notes on this one. John.
Yeah, just taking a look. I don't know, though. I think you guys really did cover like pretty much everything. I mean, the only thing that maybe you didn't mention is that you brought up Tom earlier, the side character Tom, who has the jump to conclusions chart. I just love the one scene though where he's talking about how you got to come up with an idea, you got to use your mind, and that's how you become rich. And everybody like has had somebody speak that conversation at you, and you just have to smile while it happens.
Personally, I love the long shot of them walking back into the office up the grass hill,
That
and Tom, trips over himself.
Yeah, and just the like wherever they found that hill is such an example of the like pointless design of office parks that people have to walk across that every day and are tripping all the time.
Yeah, the Amazon series Patriot from a few years ago does an amazing job of showing the space of an office park.
Yeah,
I recommend that show.
Yeah. So should we rate this then out of
Cool, let's let Dave pick it. 5 red staplers, is that what we're rating it out of, or what?
Let's not let Dave pick it, is what you're saying.
I think you just did it for me. That's a good one.
No, you pick what you want, Dave.
5 pieces of flair. I don't know.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah, that's
cool.
good.
But you need 16, is it?
Yeah,
really
at
should.
least. Yeah.
I guess 4 for me. I love this movie and I'd watch it again today.
All right. I'm gonna give it 3. I still think it has a lot of structural flaws, but I find it amusing. I like it. I like it more than I used to, apparently. Dave?
I almost brought it down to 4 just because it's not perfect, but fuck it. I'm going with 5. I love it.
Ooh,
all right.
Yeah.
I feel like we've had multiple 5-star
This
David
season.
Rosen episodes.
It's
this
a great
season.
year, guys.
Yeah, what was your other one?
Can I ask
And
you
you
a
gave 5 stars to Fight Club as
I
well.
did 5 stars. Can I ask you guys before we move on?
Yeah.
Is this the best Dave's pick?
To me, it is, and I'm glad you mentioned that because I know we give you crap about
Yeah.
it, and I actually think this probably is. I haven't racked all of your picks in my brain, but this off the top of my head is.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what they all were, but I think that this is probably the one I like the most.
Pretty cool.
So thanks, Dave.
All right.
We'll come back then in a moment and talk about the legacy of Office Space. Welcome back to Awesome Movie Year. In this episode of our season on the films of 1999, we've been talking about our producer David Rosen's pick, Office Space.
Wait, I have to ask Dave a question.
Please do.
Do you like Michael Bolton, the singer? Not the character name, Michael Bolton.
I mean, I can't really pick a favorite song, but he's
Yeah.
pretty good though.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say that like Michael Bolton whether you like his music or not, has a nice like sense of
He's
humor
got
about
a
himself.
great sense of humor about him.
I've had that whole thing happen, by the way, with David Rosen because of the character on Scandal. People have asked me if it's my real name or if it's.
Oh wow, I didn't even know that. I went to school with a kid named Steve Martin, which
there's a sketch. I think it was a Funny or Die thing where they cut the real Michael Bolton into this, and instead of and he does like all the character Michael Bolton lines, but when they talk about the singer, instead of calling him a no talent ass clown, he calls himself an extremely talented ass clown. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, he had that Saturday Night Live Jack Sparrow sketch, which was fun, and he has I haven't watched it, but there's a whole Netflix Valentine's Day special where he just kind of makes fun of his reputation.
I've watched that.
Is it funny?
It's a Lonely Island special. Yeah, it is. He's great.
Yeah.
So.
Good for Michael Bolton.
Yeah. Listen to that on Awesome Michael Bolton year.
Yeah. Which is every year.
Of course.
So, I mean, the big legacy here of this movie, obviously, is that it's become this cult classic, this hugely influential and beloved film from basically being a failure. And that continues. I mean, so many memes and references and real world. You mentioned Friday's getting rid of Flair, the fact that Swingline made a red stapler that didn't exist prior to this film. All of these things.
I think two things though, Josh. It couldn't happen today because if like Comedy Central played a movie that came out a year ago constantly now, like no one would care because no one watches Comedy Central.
Well, no, but it does happen with Netflix. You see this a lot where Netflix will pick up some unsuccessful movie from a few years ago and promote it. Dave talks about this. Dave's dad always mistakes old movies for new movies because they didn't do anything at the box office, and Netflix just pops them up and suddenly they're huge hits.
Well, that's how I feel. Like Cobra Kai is the best example to me, which is not a movie, but a TV show, Josh.
I do know that.
Okay. But I don't know. But the difference is that yes, Netflix will give you like an algorithm where you can see it. But Comedy Central would just like run it on loops all the time.
Well, true. But I mean, yeah, Netflix puts it in front of people and a lot of people will just watch whatever Netflix puts in front of them.
Well, and the big difference is that of all the things that Netflix does that with, none of them are comedies usually.
That's true. It's a lot of action movies and thrillers and stuff like that.
Which never really capture the zeitgeist or anything.
Right. But they certainly do find new expanded audiences to the point where I know, at least, for example, the movie Den of Thieves, I think part of the reason it's supposedly going to get a sequel is because it became this bigger thing on Netflix. And that's obviously not like this movie, but I do think that that's a phenomenon that can happen now, just in a different way.
I have been involved with 2 spoofs of Office Space.
Oh.
As I like to regale you with tales of my mediocre career.
Yeah.
The first one was actually my friends at Ugu Productions. They had an old printer. It was either a printer or a computer. And we literally went out to the desert and they almost shot for shot recreated the printer destruction sequence, which a lot of people have done. Right?
Yes.
So be a little more creative. And then when I had my TV show, we did a scene that was kind of a mix between the Bobs and Lumbergh. And my show was a fantasy football show. And so it was me and great local actress Nicole Unger playing those kind of Bob characters or Lumbergh, kind of mixes. And we're interviewing quarterback Andy Dalton of the Cincinnati Bengals, and we're asking him like why he thinks he could keep the job, and he's like, well, I complete passes, and he goes, and we do a lot of like, yeah, you complete passes to here, but we're gonna need you to complete passes to here. And it was a really funny, good sketch. We did it twice. We actually called it back later in the season, so that was a lot of fun. And that's it, Josh.
Yeah, nice work.
Thanks.
Yeah, maybe we'll
we should try to
see if we can put those online. We put up your Blair Witch the musical recently.
We're really going through my career. It feels like I'm getting a lifetime achievement award.
Excavate all of Jason's past glories there.
I can't wait to give my speech.
Yes. So Mike Judge, I mean, as we've said, has had kind of a frustrating career as a director of live action films. And he's directed 2 other live action movies, Idiocracy and Extract. And Idiocracy, another movie that was really far more than this one even, that was mishandled, mismarketed, kind of dumped by the studio, and became this huge cult phenomenon that is very influential and referenced constantly. Extract, not so much.
Yeah, I didn't love either of those movies, but I would rewatch both of them.
I remember being disappointed with both of those films as well, but haven't seen them since. So, Dave, what are your thoughts on?
Huge fan of Idiocracy, and if we ever do 2006, it'll probably be my pick. But
right.
Extract though just did nothing for me.
Over Scott Pilgrim?
That's not from 2006, Scott Pilgrim. That's from 2011.
Well, then you don't have to worry about it.
Don't worry about
Just
Scott
cut all that
Pilgrim,
out there. Of course, Mike Judge has done a lot better on TV. I mean, King of the Hill, which was still going at this time, went on for many, 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 many more seasons, probably too many more seasons.
Are they rebooting that now too?
I don't know if they're rebooting that. They are rebooting Beavis and Butthead, which has been rebooted once already. It had a revival, a single season revival in 2011, which was really good. I remember wondering if they could capture it again, and I thought that was really funny. They are doing more episodes of that for Paramount Plus, as well as a movie of Beavis and Butthead. Of course, more recently, Silicon Valley on HBO, which ran for 6 seasons, something like that.
I watched the first 4. It was great, but law of diminishing returns. By the end of season 4, I couldn't deal with it anymore.
Yeah, and it definitely felt very repetitive, and
right.
It never was quite as good as it could have been, but there's so much of Office Space in Silicon Valley.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The Good Family. Did anybody watch that? That was his not successful animated comedy that was making fun of like liberals.
I don't even remember that.
Yeah, it was on Fox for 1 season.
Huh.
Yeah, it was. I mean, Mike Judge has this kind of like, he's quiet about it, but there's a somewhat conservative libertarian streak to some of his comedy. And that seemed like that was coming out. They were these, hippie progressives, and it was mocking them in a not particularly effective or amusing way. So that one didn't work. But otherwise, he's been quite successful.
He's
on
good.
TV. Yeah. No. Overall, I think he's very good, and I look forward to those new Beavis and Butthead episodes.
Wonderful.
Thank you. I mean, acting wise,
do you look forward to other things in life?
Not really. Just
good.
Just that. It's enough. So that's what keeps
takes
me
a
going.
lot of your energy.
Yeah. That's all I need really to keep going. Yeah, we mentioned these, a lot of the actors and where they've gone. Ron Livingston is a very steadily working character actor, does a lot of TV.
I hear Loudermilk's quite good, his Amazon show. I haven't watched it.
No, I haven't either, but he's also on A Million Little Things on ABC right now, which is a fairly successful show. And Jennifer Aniston, I mean, as with all the Friends, she does have trouble kind of establishing.
She's huge now.
Well, I mean, she's famous for being Jennifer Aniston.
The morning show is quite acclaimed.
Yeah, it's okay.
I don't say you like it. I'm saying it's quite acclaimed.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's had a lot of mixed response, really. I mean, she's able to be to star in these big productions, but I think nothing that she's done has really eclipsed what she did on Friends.
Maybe not, but I think it's a little unfair because I've mentioned my love of The Breakup,
right?
Which if that's in 2006, that might be my pick.
We're just going to put every movie in 2006. Yeah. Why not?
How about The Good Girl? That's a great movie that she's really good in.
She is. And what I was going to say, the second part of what I was going to say is that, part of that is that sort of status is that she has that freedom to take parts in these smaller films or, stretch herself a bit, and that she does that in movies like The Good Girl. And I think she maybe doesn't get enough credit for that.
I think you're right, Josh. Can I throw an underrated Ron Livingston movie at you that talked about? Drinking Buddies, Joe Swanberg. That's a good movie.
I like that movie too. I'm a big fan of Joe Swanberg, who's very, very prolific. But that's a fun one. David Herman, tons of voice roles. And Ajay Naidu works in small roles, supporting roles. He does a lot of theater, but again, they didn't become, you don't recognize them necessarily when you watch this film.
No, I agree. Well, Dave Herman, like you said, man, he's done King of the Hill, Futurama, Bob's Burgers, The Great North now. And AJ is more of a multimedia type artist. He directed a movie called Ashes from 2006. Don't quote me on that. But he does like a lot of world music production. And I don't even mean world music as we think of it, but maybe like hip hop music from around the world. So yeah, no, those guys, they're all working, and the rest of that supporting cast, there's is a hall of fame of great supporting actors, right?
Right. Yeah. You look at those and you see Stephen Root and you see Gary Cole and you see John McGinley. And definitely those are guys that are always welcome, always entertaining to watch. But, so those other two, you don't necessarily think of them, oh, I know that guy when they show up on screen.
Now, Gary Cole, I think just signed on to like NCIS right after.
Yeah,
like 18
yeah.
seasons,
He's replacing Mark Harmon as like the lead of NCIS.
Yeah, I mean,
he's got to work.
What do you like him as? Peter Brady in the Brady Bunch?
I
movie?
never actually have seen those Brady Bunch.
He's
movies.
great as the commentator in Dodgeball on the Ocho, and the dad in Talladega Nights are probably the two.
Yeah, and he's also a good dramatic actor. I remember underrated horror series called American Gothic from probably maybe around this period, actually.
I think he's from Steppenwolf Theater in Chicago.
Yeah, could be. Yeah, very talented guy.
Now, you mentioned Stephen Root. He's on fire right now. I mean, he's always on fire, but Queen Pins, The Tragedy of Macbeth, and Paint all coming out or out now. So he's got a lot going.
Yeah, I mean, he works a lot with the Coens. I'm sure that's Joel Coen doing the Macbeth film.
Yeah.
He was great on Barry, the HBO series. Always good.
Did we talk about Paint when we talked about my pick with Owen Wilson, Rushmore?
I don't know that we did.
Paint sounds really interesting. It's basically about like a public access TV show painter, and then like a new hotshot painter comes in and gets a public access show. I know like Owen Wilson and Stephen Root are in it. It sounds like it could be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
McGinley, like amazing on Scrubs. We all know that. And he steals scenes in almost everything that he's in, I think.
He does. He was just great as this sort of detestable villain character on the last season of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And, as soon as he comes on, he just creates that character. Immediately you understand that character.
He's got energy and, a real, like, you want to focus on him. Also a huge Bruce Springsteen fan, Josh.
Well, that's the most important thing. Anything else on the legacy?
What about Diedrich Bader?
Well, sorry, we don't want to forget Diedrich Bader.
From films like Jay and Silent Bob and Jay and Silent Bob.
He's also a voice actor who does a lot of voiceover work. He's done the voice of Batman, I think.
But I want to say this, right? Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Office Space, Napoleon Dynamite. Pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, as far as that sort of weird niche of Dave's picks, I feel like
those could all be Dave's.
He's really a star of Dave's picks.
Was he also in Foot Fist Way, or am I imagining that?
No, I think it's just because of his Napoleon Dynamite character.
Think that's what I was confusing them.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the worst thing that's ever been done as a spoof of this was a Ted Cruz commercial of the printer scene where it was like Hillary Clinton's staff busting the computer because of her emails. Oh, Ted Cruz. He's so funny.
That's terrible.
It is horrible.
We don't want that. So.
Some famous fans include Chris Rock, Jim Carrey, and Madonna.
Sure. I like those people.
And what about Tales from the Bus? Did you ever watch that, Mike?
No, that was a recent Mike Judge show that was like animations of like roadies and techs and people like that, rock stars and their stories about being on the road. So no, that seems like a weird project because it's not, it's him interpreting people's real experiences. I think it only lasted for a season, so maybe not the best either.
All right. I got nothing else on this one, Josh.
No, that was a lot. So anything else you want to add here, Dave?
I think you guys did it.
We did do it.
Uh-huh.
We did it.
So that's Office Space. And that's this episode of Awesome Movie Year. Check us out on the social media.
You can check us out or check me out. Hey, JasonHarrisComedy.com, not a website. Go for Jason.com. TPS report of a website. Who knows what those things are? Find me on any of the socials, J Harris Comedy, Jason Harris Comedy. I will try to get those sketches up. They're fun to watch.
Yeah, we'd love to see them.
AwesomeMovieYear.com. It's adequate. Awesome Movie Year on Facebook and Instagram. Awesome Movie Pod on Twitter.
I am at JoshBellHatesEverything.com. There's some stuff there. Josh Bell Hates Everything on Facebook and at Signal Bleed on Twitter. And listen to our producer, David Rosen's awesome podcast, Piecing It Together.
Check out Piecing It Together wherever you listen to podcasts and follow us on social media at Piecing Pod and join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces.
Tell us what you think about stuff.
Yes.
Any stuff,
hey,
really.
Stuff.
Whatever you want. Share recipes. Anything you like.
Ooh, recipes.
No, don't do that. It's a movie group. Dave will cancel your post
if it's movie related.
Yeah,
that's
you can
fine.
Share recipes from Julie and Julia.
All right.
The classic 2006
What's in our next episode, Jason?
Josh, I'm excited for this one. It's our cult classic, and Office Space could have been it, but 1999, one of the ultimate cult classics to ever come out. Troy Duffy's The Boondock Saints.
So tune in next time for The Boondock Saints, and thanks for listening to Awesome Movie Year.
Thank you for listening to Awesome Movie Year. Make sure to follow Awesome Movie Year on Facebook, at Awesome Movie Pod on Twitter, and at Awesome Movie Year on Instagram. And if you like the show, review us and rate us with 5 stars on Apple Podcasts.
An All Points West production, produced by David Rosen in Las Vegas.
Yeah, you picked some real losers there.
Oh, I
in the
know.
past. The Frighteners possibly
That
was
was
Jason's
my
least
least-
favorite movie we've talked about.
No,
Maybe
I
not.
just said it was recent. My least.
Was
favorite
it
movie.
How to Succeed in Business? Maybe
No, Wild Wild West.
No, Wild
Yeah,
Wild West.
That is
yeah,
my least favorite.
yeah.
That's so bad.
Yeah, fair enough.
The 10, you picked the producers,
Yeah,
which isn't bad.
But
I
you
like
like the
it.
producers.
I do.
I
like
don't
it,
like the
so.
producers. Yeah.
What else have you picked?
The
Only-
Kentucky Fried Movie.
Oh, Kentucky Fried
No,
Movie.
I'm
yeah.
glad you picked that movie.
Yeah, that was a good
Yeah,
one.
yeah. I didn't like it, but it was something interesting to talk about.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And this is a good addition.
Right,
to
right.
this.
I mean, and it's not that those are like necessarily like they're bad picks. I mean, I just didn't enjoy
For sure.
watching them, but yeah,
Fair enough.
It's all good.